Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, the only place in the world where you can get these readings every day of an hour of straight readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, every single day, 7 days a week. Okay. Welcome to all of you out there in cyberspace. We hope you're all happy and well and in Krishna consciousness, relishing the Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami relished the Bhagavatam so much so that he glorified it with a wonderful prayer called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. And it goes like this. Sarvashasya Dipiyusha Sarvavedaika Satpala Sarvasiddhanta Ratnaja Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kali Dvanduditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bandhu Matsangin Madguru Mad Mahadana Mad Nistadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu sadhutadayin atini chochata kada hanamun shagadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've come to the 11th chapter of the 11th canto. We're finding out the difference between liberated and conditioned souls. And we're starting with text 21. Coming to this conclusion of all knowledge, one should give up the false conception of material variety that one imposes upon the soul, and thus cease one's material existence. The mind should be fixed on me, since I am all-pervading. Purport. Although in previous verses, Lord Krishna has described the lifestyle and approach of the impersonal philosophers who meditate on the distinction between matter and spirit, the Lord here rejects the path of jnana, or speculation, and comes to the final conclusion, bhakti yoga. The path of jnana is interesting only to one who does not know that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavam mam prapadyate vasudevak sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. The words Vasudeva Sarvamiti, or Vasudeva is everything, are similar to the words Sarvagye found in this verse. one should know why the personality of Godhead is all-pervading. The first verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam states, Janmad yasya yataha. The Supreme Lord is the source of everything. And as stated in the previous verse of this chapter, He creates, maintains, and annihilates everything. Thus the Lord is not all-pervading in the manner of air or sunlight. Rather, the Lord is all-pervading as the absolute controller who holds in His hands the destiny of every living entity. Everything is ultimately an expansion of Krishna, and therefore there is really no other object of meditation besides Krishna. Meditation upon any other object is also meditation on Krishna, but is imperfectly performed, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita by the word avidi purvakam. The Lord also states in the Gita that all living entities are on the path back home, back to Godhead. Because of ignorance, however, some of them go backward or stop along the way, foolishly thinking that their journey is finished, when in fact they are suspended in one of the minor potencies of the Supreme Lord. If one wants to intimately understand the nature of the Absolute Truth, one must take to the path of love of Godhead, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 1855, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yas chasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality as He is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. The word nanatva brahman. The word nanatva brahman in this verse indicates false identification with the gross and subtle material bodies. The word Brahma indicates a mistake. It can also mean wandering or rotating. The conditioned living entity, because of his mistake of falling into illusion, is wandering through a succession of material bodies, sometimes appearing as a demigod and sometimes as a worm and stool. The word uparameta means that one should stop such fruitless wandering and fix one's mind on the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord, who is the true object of everyone's love. Such a conclusion is not sentimental, but is the result of keen analytic intelligence, jigyasaya. Thus, after elaborately explaining to Uddhava many aspects of analytic knowledge, the Lord now comes to the ultimate conclusion, Krishna consciousness, pure love of Godhead. Without such love, there is no question of eternally fixing one's mind on the Lord. Quoting from the Viveka, Srila Madhvacharya states that Nanatva Brahman indicates the following illusions. Considering the living entity to be the Supreme, considering all living entities to be ultimately one entity without separate individuality, considering that there are many gods, considering that Krishna is not God, and considering that the material universe is the ultimate reality. All of these illusions are called Brahma. That's B-H-R-A-M-A, not like Brahma, it's a different spelling. Brahma, or mistakes. But such ignorance can be eliminated at once by the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 22. My dear Uddhava, if you are not able to free your mind from all material disturbance, and thus absorb it completely on the spiritual platform, then perform all your activities as an offering to me, without trying to enjoy the fruits. Purport. If one offers one's activities to Lord Krishna without trying to enjoy the results, one's mind becomes purified. When the mind is purified, transcendental knowledge automatically manifests, since such knowledge is a byproduct of pure consciousness. When the mind is absorbed in perfect knowledge, it can be raised to the spiritual platform, as described in the Bhagavad Gita 1854. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakankshati Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labate Param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. By absorbing the mind in the transcendental form of Lord Krishna, one can surpass the stage of ordinary transcendental knowledge, by which one simply distinguishes oneself from the gross and subtle material bodies. Spiritually enriched by loving devotional service to the Lord, the mind is completely purified of all tinges of illusion. Through intense concentration of on one's relationship with the personality of Godhead, one comes to the highest standard of knowledge and becomes an intimate associate of the personality of Godhead. By offering one's activities to the personality of Godhead, one purifies one's mind to some extent and thus comes to the preliminary stage of spiritual awareness. Yet even then, one may not be able to fix one's mind completely on the spiritual platform. At that point, one should realistically assess one's position, noting the lingering material contamination within the mind. Then, as stated in this verse, one should intensify one's practical devotional work in the service of the Lord. If one artificially considers oneself to be supremely liberated, or if one becomes casual on the path of spiritual advancement, there is serious danger of a fall down. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Lord previously explained to Uddhava Jnana Mishra Bhakti, or devotional service mixed with the impure desire to enjoy transcendental knowledge. In this verse, the Lord clearly reveals that transcendental knowledge is an automatic byproduct of loving service to the Lord. And in the next verse, the Lord begins his explanation of pure devotional service, which is completely sufficient for self-realization. The desire to enjoy spiritual knowledge is certainly a material desire, since the goal is one's personal satisfaction and not the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Lord Krishna here warns Uddhava that if one is not able to fix one's mind in trance on the spiritual platform, then one should not go on simply theoretically discussing what is Brahman and what is not Brahman. Rather, one should engage in practical devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and then spiritual knowledge will automatically awaken in one's heart. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10, Tesham satatidyuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give I got two lines here. This is what happens to this NFO file when it comes over. Sometimes like here this is what I have. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the oo. To those who are constantly devoted to love, I give the understanding. Okay, I have to make this correction, so just give me a second. What? I give the ooh. Okay. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Similarly, in the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma warns that one should not neglect the auspicious path of bhakti and instead take up... I have to report that also to Dravida. Where is my... I don't see my... Strange. Anyway. Similarly, in the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma warns that one should not neglect the auspicious path of bhakti and instead take up the useless labor of mental speculation. By mere philosophical speculation, one cannot fix one's mind on the spiritual platform. Many great philosophers throughout history had abominable personal habits, which proves that they could not fix themselves on the spiritual platform by mere speculation on philosophical categories. If one is not fortunate enough to have executed devotional service to the Lord in one's past life, and if one is therefore addicted to mere speculation on the differences between matter and spirit, one will not be able to fix one's mind on the spiritual platform. Such a person should give up useless speculation and engage in the practical work of Krishna consciousness, absorbing himself 24 hours a day in the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such missionary work for the Lord's sake, one should never try to enjoy the fruits of one's work. Even though the mind is not completely pure, if one offers the fruits of one's work to the Lord, the mind will quickly come to the standard of pure desirelessness, in which one's only desire is the Lord's satisfaction. Srila Jiva Goswami states that if one does not have faith in the personal form and activities of the personality of Godhead, one will not have the spiritual strength to remain perpetually on the transcendental platform. In this verse, the Lord is definitely bringing Uddhava and all living entities to the conclusion of all philosophy, pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that one who is bewildered by false ego may not want to offer his activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though this is the actual way of rising above the influence of the modes of material nature. Because of ignorance, one does not know that he is the eternal servant of Krishna, and instead is attracted by the duality of material illusion. One cannot become free from such illusion by theoretical speculation, but if one offers one's work to the personality of Godhead, one will clearly understand his eternal transcendental position as a servant of the Lord. Text 23 and 24. My dear Uddhava, narrations of my pastimes and qualities are all auspicious and purify the entire universe. A faithful person who constantly hears, glorifies, and remembers such transcendental activities, who through dramatic performances relives my pastimes, beginning with my appearance, and who takes full shelter of me, dedicating his religious, sensual, and occupational activities for my satisfaction, certainly obtains unflinching devotional service to me, the eternal personality of Godhead. Purport. Those who have faith only in the impersonal, effulgent aspect of the Supreme Lord, and those who have faith only in the localized Supersoul, the perfect object of mystic meditation, located in the heart of every living entity, are considered to be limited and imperfect in their transcendental realization. The process of mystic meditation and impersonal philosophical speculation are both devoid of actual love of God, and therefore cannot be considered to be the perfection of human life. Only one who places full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes qualified to go back home, back to Godhead. Lord Krishna's pastimes of stealing butter from the elderly gopis, enjoying life with his cowherd boyfriends and the young gopis, playing his flute and engaging in the rasa dance, etc., are all auspicious spiritual activities, and they are fully described in the 10th canto of this work. There are many authorized songs and prayers glorifying these pastimes of the Lord, and by constantly chanting them, one will automatically be fixed in smaranam, or remembrance, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord exhibited his opulences upon his birth in Kamsa's prison, and at the birth ceremony, subsequently performed by Nanda Maharaj in Gokula. The Lord further performed many adventurous activities, such as chastising the serpent Kaliya and killing many other demons. One should regularly take part in the ceremonies commemorating Krishna's pastimes, such as the Janmashtami celebration, glorifying the Lord's birth. On such days, one should worship the deity of Lord Krishna and the spiritual master, and thus remember the Lord's pastimes. The word dharma in this verse indicates that one's religious activities should always be in connection with Krishna. Therefore, one should give charity in the form of food grains, clothing, etc. to the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, and whenever possible, one should arrange for the protection of cows who are very dear to the Lord. The word kama indicates that one should satisfy one's desires with the transcendental paraphernalia of the Lord. One should eat mahaprasadam, food offered to the deity of Lord Krishna. And one should also decorate oneself with the Lord's flower garlands and sandalwood pulp, and should place the remnants of the deity's clothing on one's body. One who lives in a luxurious mansion or apartment should convert his residence into a temple of Lord Krishna and invite others to come, chant before the deity, hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, and taste the remnants of the Lord's food. Or one may live in a beautiful temple building in the community of Vaishnavas and engage in the same activities. The word artha in this verse indicates that one who is inclined toward business should accumulate money to promote the missionary work of the Lord's devotees, and not for one's personal sense gratification. Thus, one's business activities are also considered to be devotional service to Lord Krishna. The word nishchalam indicates that since Lord Krishna is eternally fixed in perfect knowledge and bliss, there is no possibility of disturbance for one who worships the Lord. If we worship anything except the Lord, our worship may be disturbed when our worshipable deity is placed in an awkward position. but because the Lord is supreme, our worship of Him is eternally free of disturbance. One who engages in hearing, glorifying, remembering, and dramatically recreating the pastimes of the Lord will soon be freed from all material desire. Srila Jiva Goswami mentions in this connection that one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness may specifically be attracted to the pastimes of a devotee in the spiritual world who serves the Lord in a particular way. An advanced devotee in this world may desire to serve the Lord in the same way, and thus may take pleasure in dramatically reliving the service of his worshipable devotee master in the spiritual world. Also, one may take pleasure in spiritual festivals, performances of particular pastimes of Lord Krishna, or activities of other devotees of the Lord. In this way, one can continually increase one's faith in the personality of Godhead. those who have no desire to hear, glorify, or remember the transcendental activities of the Lord are certainly materially polluted and never achieve the highest perfection. Such persons spoil the opportunity of human life by devoting themselves to fleeting, mundane topics that produce no eternal benefit. The real meaning of religion is to constantly serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. One who has taken full shelter of the Lord is completely uninterested in impersonal speculations about the nature of God and uses his time to advance more and more in the unlimited bliss of pure devotional service. Text 25. One who has obtained pure devotional service by association with my devotees always engages in worshipping me. Excuse me. Sorry. Hare Krishna. One who has obtained pure devotional service by association with my devotees always engages in worshipping me. Thus he very easily goes to my abode, which is revealed by my pure devotees. Purport. In the previous verses, Lord Krishna has emphasized the value of surrendering to him in loving service. One may ask how such surrender or devotion is actually achieved. The Lord gives the answer in this verse. One must live in a society of devotees, and thus automatically one will be engaged 24 hours a day in the various processes of devotional service, beginning with Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam, hearing, glorifying, and remembering the Lord. The pure devotees of the Lord can reveal the spiritual world by their transcendental sound vibration, making it possible for even a neophyte devotee to experience the Lord's abode. Being thus enlivened, the neophyte makes further progress and gradually becomes qualified to personally serve the personality of Godhead in the spiritual world. By constantly associating with devotees and learning from them about devotional service, one quickly achieves a deep attachment for the Lord and the Lord's service. And such attachment gradually matures into pure love of Godhead. Foolish persons say that the various mantras composed of names of God, as well as all other mantras, are merely material creations with no special value. And therefore, any so-called mantra or mystical process will ultimately produce the same result. To refute such superficial thinking, the Lord here describes the science of going back home, back to Godhead. One should not accept the bad association of impersonalists who state that the holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord are Maya, or illusion. Maya is actually an insignificant potency of the Almighty Personality of Godhead, and if one ignorantly tries to elevate illusion above the absolute truth, one will never experience love of Godhead and will be cast into deep forgetfulness of the Lord. One should not associate with those who are envious of the fortunate devotees who are going back to Godhead. Such envious persons deride the abode of the Lord, which is revealed by the pure devotees to those who have faith in the Lord's message. Such envious persons deride the abode of the Lord, which is revealed by the pure devotees to those who have faith in the Lord's message. Envious persons create disturbances among the people in general, who should take shelter of the faithful devotees of the Lord. Unless people hear from the pure devotees, it is impossible for them to understand that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally existing in his own abode, which is self-luminous, full of bliss and knowledge. In this verse, the importance of Sangha, association, is clearly explained. Text 26 and 27. Sri Uddhava said, "My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, what type of persons do you consider to be a true devotee? And what type of devotional service is approved by great devotees as worthy of being offered to your Lordship? My dear ruler of the universal controllers, O Lord of Vaikuntha and Almighty God of the universe, I am your devotee, and because I love you, I have no other shelter than you. Therefore, please explain this to me." Sweet. Purport. In the previous verse, it was stated that one can achieve the Lord's supreme abode by associating with devotees. Therefore, Uddhava naturally inquires about the symptoms of a distinguished devotee whose association can promote one to the kingdom of God. Srila Jiva Goswami notes that the personality of Godhead knows who is actually a sincere devotee because the Lord is always attached to his loving servitors. Similarly, pure devotees can expertly explain the proper methods of devotional service to Lord Krishna because they are already absorbed in love of Krishna. Uddhava herein requests Lord Krishna to describe the qualities of a devotee and asks the Lord to explain the devotional service that the devotees themselves approve as worthy to be offered to the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that the word Purushadyaksha indicates that Lord Krishna is the supreme ruler of the universal controllers, headed by Mahavishnu, and thus the Lord possesses infinite sovereignty. The term Lokadyaksha indicates that Lord Krishna is the ultimate supervising authority of all the Vaikuntha planets, and therefore the Lord is unlimitedly glorious and perfect. Uddhava further addresses Lord Krishna as Jagat Prabhu, because even in the illusory material world, the Lord exhibits his unlimited mercy by personally incarnating to uplift the conditioned souls. The word Pranataya, your surrendered devotee, indicates that Uddhava is not proud like ordinary fools who do not enjoy bowing down to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Uddhava mentions that he is Anuraktaya, or completely bound in love to Lord Krishna, because unlike other great devotees such as Arjuna, who sometimes worshipped demigods in order to comply with social customs or to show respect for their positions in the scheme of planetary management, Uddhava never worshipped any demigods. That's interesting. Arjuna sometimes worshipped demigods, just social, as a social obligation or duty. And Uddhava never did. Therefore, Uddhava is prapanaya, or completely surrendered to Lord Krishna, having no other shelter. Text 28. My dear Lord, as the absolute truth, you are transcendental to material nature, and like the sky, you are never entangled in any way. Still, being controlled by your devotees' love, you accept many different forms, incarnating according to your devotees' desires. Purport. The pure devotees of the Lord propagate devotional service all over the world, and therefore, although separate from the personal form of the Lord, they are considered to be manifestations of God's mercy and potency. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya 7:11, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravaratan. The Lord is like the sky, Vyoma, because although expanded everywhere, he is not entangled in anything. He is prakriti para, or completely transcendental to material nature. The Lord is fully self-satisfied and is therefore indifferent to the affairs of the material world. Still, because of his causeless mercy, the Lord desires to expand pure devotional service, and for this reason, he incarnates within the material world to uplift the fallen conditioned souls. The Lord descends in selected spiritual bodies to please his loving devotees. Sometimes he appears in his original form as Krishna, and even Krishna himself appears in different forms to special devotees so that they may fully develop their loving sentiments for him. Srila Jiva Goswami gives us several examples of the Lord's special mercy upon his devotees. Lord Krishna personally went to the home of Jambavan and there displayed a form with slightly angry glances. In that form, the Lord enjoyed a fight with his devotee. The Lord displayed his form as Dattatreya to Atri Muni and similarly bestowed special mercy upon Lord Brahma, the demigods, Akrura, and innumerable other devotees. And in Vrindavan, the Lord displayed his most beautiful form as Govinda to the fortunate inhabitants. Srila Madhvacharya has quoted from the Prakash Samhita as follows: the Lord accepts different spiritual bodies according to the desire of his devotees. For example, the Lord agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Thus, although Lord Krishna has an eternal blissful spiritual form, he appears to enter within the body of his devotee, who becomes his mother. Although we speak of the Lord's taking on a body, the Lord does not change his form, as do the conditioned souls, who must change their material bodies. The Lord appears in his own eternally unchangeable forms. Lord Hari always appears in the forms that are especially desired by his loving devotees, and never in other forms. However, if one thinks that the Lord, in the matter of an ordinary person taking birth, becomes the physical son of Vasudeva or other devotees, then one is victimized by illusion. The Lord merely expands his spiritual potency, causing his pure devotees to think, Krishna is now my son. One should understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never accepts or rejects the material body, nor does he ever give up his eternal spiritual forms. Rather, the Lord eternally manifests his blissful bodies according to the loving sentiments of his eternal pure devotees. Srila Jiva Goswami mentions that the word Vyoma also indicates the Lord's name of Paravyoma, or the Lord of the spiritual sky. One should not misinterpret this verse to mean that Lord Krishna is impersonal, like the material sky, or that the form of Krishna is merely another selected incarnation equal to any other. Such casual and whimsical speculations cannot be accepted as actual spiritual knowledge. Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, Krishna's tu, Bhagavan, Swayam. And the Lord has explained elaborately in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the original source of everything. Therefore, the pure devotees of the Lord are eternally engaged in full knowledge and bliss in loving service to the Lord's original form as Krishna. The whole purpose of Srimad-Bhagavatam is to arouse our love for Lord Krishna, and one should not foolishly misunderstand this great purpose. Texts 29 through 32. Are we still all together? Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Who said?
Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay, just testing. O Uddhava, a saintly person is merciful and never injures others. Even if others are aggressive, he is tolerant and forgiving toward all living entities. His strength and meaning in life come from the truth itself. He is free from all envy and jealousy, and his mind is equal in material happiness and distress. Thus, he dedicates his time to working for the welfare of all others. His intelligence is never bewildered by material desires, and he has controlled his senses. His behavior is always pleasing, never harsh, and always exemplary, and he is free from possessiveness. He never endeavors in ordinary worldly activities, and he strictly controls his eating. He therefore always remains peaceful and steady. A saintly person is thoughtful and accepts me as his only shelter. Such a person is very cautious in the execution of his duties and is never subject to superficial transformations, because he is steady and noble, even in a distressing situation. He is conquered over the 6 material qualities, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. He is free from all desire for prestige and offers honor to others. He is expert in reviving the Krishna consciousness of others, and therefore never cheats anyone. Rather, he is a well-wishing friend to all, being most merciful. Such a saintly person must be considered the most learned of men. He perfectly understands that the ordinary religious duties prescribed by me in various Vedic scriptures possess favorable qualities that purify the performer. And he knows that neglect of such duties constitutes a discrepancy in one's life. Having taken complete shelter at my lotus feet, however, a saintly person ultimately renounces such ordinary religious duties and worships me alone. He is thus considered to be the best among all living entities. It's a nice description of devotee. Purport. Verses 29 through 31 describe 28 qualities of a saintly person, and text 32 explains the highest perfection of life. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the 17th quality, Mat Sharana, or taking complete shelter of Lord Krishna, is the most important, and the other 27 qualities automatically appear in one who has become a pure devotee of the Lord. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 5.18.12, Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatya Kinchana Sarvair Gunais Tatra Samasate Sudaha. The 28 saintly qualities may be described as follows. 1. Kripalu. A devotee cannot tolerate seeing the Lord merged in ignorance and suffering the whiplashes of Maya. Therefore he busily engages in distributing Krishna consciousness and is called Kripalu, or merciful. 2. Akrita Droha. Akrita Droha. Even if someone is offensive toward a devotee does not become offensive in return. Indeed, he never acts against the interest of any living entity. One may argue that great Vaishnava kings, such as Maharaj Yudhishthir and Parikshit Maharaj, executed many criminals. However, when justice is properly administered by the state, sinful, destructive persons actually benefit from their punishment, because they become freed from the severe karmic reactions to their illicit activities. A Vaishnava ruler gives punishment not out of envy or malice, but in faithful obedience to the laws of God. The Mayavadi philosophers who want to kill God by imagining that he does not exist are certainly Krita Droha, or most injurious to themselves and others. The impersonalist imagines that he himself is supreme and thus creates a most dangerous situation for himself and his followers. Similarly, the karmis, who are dedicated to material sense gratification, are also killers of the self, because by their absorption in material consciousness, they lose all chance of experiencing the absolute truth and the truth of their own self. Therefore, all living entities who come under the control of materialistic regulations and duties are unnecessarily harassing themselves and others. And a pure Vaishnava feels great compassion and concern for them. A devotee never uses his mind, body, or words to perform any act harmful to the welfare of any living entity. 3. Tikshu. A devotee forgives and forgets any offense against himself. A Vaishnava is personally detached from his material body, which is made of pus, stool, blood, and so on. Therefore, the devotee is able to overlook the obnoxious behavior he sometimes meets within the course of preaching work, and always deals with people as a perfect gentleman. A Vaishnava loudly chants the holy name of the Lord and tolerates and forgives those fallen conditioned souls who were unable to reciprocate properly with a pure devotee. 4. Satyasara. A devotee always remembers that he is the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is omniscient, the reservoir of all pleasure, and the ultimate enjoyer of all activities. By avoiding activities outside devotional service, a devotee remains fixed in the truth, does not uselessly waste time, and thus becomes bold, powerful, and steady. 5. Anavajatma. A devotee knows that the material world is a temporary phantasmagoria, and therefore does not envy anyone in any material situation. He never tries to agitate others or criticize them unnecessarily. 6. Sama. A devotee remains steady and equal in material happiness or distress, fame or infamy. His actual wealth is his consciousness of Krishna, and he understands that his real self-interest lies outside the scope of material nature. He does not become excited or depressed by external events, but remains fixed in consciousness of the omnipotency of Lord Krishna. 7. Sarvo Pakaraka. Neglecting one's selfish desires and working for the satisfaction of others is called paropakara, whereas causing trouble to others for one's personal gratification is called parapakara. Parapakara. There's paropakara, and parakpakara. A devotee always works for the pleasure of Lord Krishna, who is the resting place of all living entities, and thus a devotee's activities are ultimately pleasing to everyone. Devotional service to Lord Krishna is the perfectional stage of welfare work, since Lord Krishna is the supreme controller of everyone's happiness and distress. Foolish persons under the influence of false egotism, considering themselves to be the ultimate well-wishers of others, execute superficial, materialistic activities rather than attending to the eternal happiness of others. Because a devotee remains pure and engages in missionary activities, he is everyone's best friend. 8. Kamair Ahatadi. Ordinary persons see all material things as objects for their personal gratification and thus try to acquire or control them. Ultimately, a man wants to possess a woman and enjoy sex gratification with her. The Supreme Lord supplies the desired fuel that causes the fire of lust to burn painfully in one's heart. But the Lord does not give self-realization to such a misguided person. Lord Krishna is transcendental and neutral, but if one is eager to exploit the Lord's creation, the Lord gives one facility through Maya, and one becomes cheated of real happiness by entangling himself in the false role of a great and lusty enjoyer of the world. On the other hand, one who has taken full shelter of Krishna is enriched with perfect knowledge and bliss, and is not cheated by the seductive appearances of the material world. A pure devotee does not follow the path of the foolish deer, which is seduced by the hunter's flute and killed. A devotee is never attracted by the sensuous entreaties of a beautiful woman, and he avoids hearing from bewildered karmis about the so-called glories of material acquisition. Similarly, a pure devotee is not bewildered by aroma or taste. He does not become attached to sumptuous eating, nor does he spend the whole day making arrangements for bodily comfort. The only actual enjoyer of God's creation is the Lord himself, and the living entities are secondary enjoyers who experience unlimited pleasure through the Lord's pleasure. This perfect process of experiencing pleasure is called Bhakti Yoga, or pure devotional service. And a devotee never sacrifices his auspicious position of steady intelligence, even in the face of so-called material opportunity. I got myself into something here. It's 28. We're on 9. 10 after. Got myself into something. Shall I go ahead? I think so. 9. Danta. A devotee is naturally repelled by sinful activities and controls his senses by dedicating all his acts to Krishna. This requires steady concentration and a cautious mentality. 10. Whoops, that's not the right. You have the wrong. Yeah. Mritu. You know, I somehow or other I lost in my up above. I don't have the ability to make it to what do they call that?
Cursor?
No, to color something. Highlight. Thank you. I lost the word. Yeah. So I want to make all these corrections, but I really need. Could you make a note?
Of what is the correction?
The correction is you make a note. You can see it on your screen. And that other one where there was a weird 2 sentences in a row. Mm-hmm. Later, find it out and highlight it. Okay? Okay, 10. Mridu. A materialistic person will always see people as friends or enemies, and thus will sometimes justify cruel or small-minded behavior in order to subdue his opponents. Since a devotee has taken shelter of Lord Krishna, he does not consider anyone his enemy and is never disturbed by the tendency to desire or enjoy the suffering of others. Thus he is mridu, or gentle and sublime. 11. Shuchi. A devotee never touches that which is impure or improper, and simply by remembering such a devotee, one is freed from the tendency to sin. Because of his perfect behavior, a devotee is called Shuchi, or pure. 12. Akinchana. A devotee is free from possessiveness and is not eager to enjoy or renounce anything, since he considers everything to be Lord Krishna's property. 13. Aniha. A devotee never acts on his own behalf, but rather for the service of Lord Krishna. He is therefore aloof from ordinary worldly affairs. 14. Mitabhuk. A devotee accepts material sense objects only as far as necessary to keep himself healthy and fit in Lord Krishna's service. He is therefore not entangled by his sense activities and never injures his self-realization. When necessary, a devotee can give up anything for Lord Krishna's service, but he does not accept or reject anything for his personal prestige. 15. Shanta. Those trying to exploit the Lord's creation are always disturbed. A devotee, however, is detached from such pointless activities and understands sense gratification to be diametrically opposed to his self-interest. Being always engaged according to the Lord's desire, he remains peaceful. 16. Stira. Remembering that Lord Krishna is the basis of everything, a devotee does not become fearful or impatient. 17. Mat Sharana. A devotee does not take pleasure in anything except serving Lord Krishna and is constantly attentive in the execution of his duties. A devotee knows that only Lord Krishna can protect him and engage him in useful work. 18. Muni. A devotee is thoughtful and through intelligent contemplation avoids becoming distracted from his spiritual advancement. By intelligence, he is freed from doubts about Lord Krishna and confronts all problems in life with steady Krishna consciousness. 19. Apramata. One who forgets the Supreme Lord is more or less crazy, but a devotee remains sane by offering his activities to Lord Krishna. 20. Gabiratma. As a devotee merges into the ocean of Krishna consciousness, his own consciousness becomes deeper and deeper. Ordinary, superficial persons hovering on the material platform cannot fathom the extent of a devotee's awareness. 21. Dritiman. By controlling the urges of the tongue and genitals, the devotee becomes steady and patient and does not impulsively change his position. 22. Jita Shadguna. By spiritual knowledge, a devotee is able to conquer the pushings of hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. 23. Amani. A devotee is not puffed up, and even if he is famous, he does not take such fame very seriously. 24. Manada. A devotee offers all respects to others since everyone is part and parcel of Lord Krishna. 25. Kalya. A devotee is expert in making people understand the truth of Krishna consciousness. 26. Maitra. A devotee does not cheat anyone by encouraging them in the bodily concept of life. Rather, by his missionary work, a devotee is a true friend of everyone. 27. Karunika. A devotee tries to make people sane and thus is most merciful. He is paradukha dukhi, or one who is unhappy to see the unhappiness of others. 28. Kavi. A devotee is expert in studying the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna and is able to show the harmony and compatibility of the Lord's apparently contradictory qualities. This is possible through expert knowledge of the absolute nature of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya is softer than a rose and harder than a thunderbolt. But those opposing qualities can easily be understood in terms of the Lord's transcendental nature and purpose. One who is always able to understand the truth of Krishna consciousness without opposition or confusion is called Kavi, or most learned. The position of those on the spiritual path can be understood in terms of their development of the qualities mentioned above. Ultimately, the most important quality is to take shelter of Lord Krishna, since the Lord can award all good qualities to his sincere devotee. In the lowest stage of devotional service, one acts with a desire to enjoy sense gratification, but at the same time tries to offer the fruits to the Lord. This stage is called Karma Mishra Bhakti. As one gradually purifies himself in devotional service, he becomes detached through knowledge and gains relief from anxiety. In this stage he becomes attached to transcendental knowledge, and therefore this stage is called Jnana Mishra Bhakti, or devotional service to Lord Krishna with the desire to enjoy the fruits of transcendental knowledge. But because pure love for Krishna is actually the greatest happiness and the natural position of the living entity, a sincere devotee gradually overcomes his desire to enjoy sense gratification, and knowledge comes to the stage, to enjoy sense gratification and knowledge, and comes to the stage of pure devotional service, which is devoid of material desire. Nakarmani chajed yogi karmabis chajate hisaha. The yogi should not give up his work, but rather should cultivate detachment, by which his material activities will automatically vanish. In other words, one should continue to perform one's prescribed duties, even imperfectly. If one is sincere about advancing in Krishna consciousness, then by the strength of Bhakti Yoga, his activities will gradually be transformed into pure, loving service. It goes on and on. There are innumerable examples of fruitive workers, mental speculators, and materialistic devotees who became perfect by the strength of devotional service. By rendering loving service to Krishna, one automatically experiences the greatest pleasure of life and is endowed with perfect knowledge. There is nothing lacking in the process of pure devotional service, and there is no need for any extraneous endeavor to acquire sense pleasure or philosophical satisfaction. One must be completely convinced that simply by serving Krishna, one will get all perfection in life. Even if one lacks some or all of the above-mentioned qualities, one should sincerely engage in Lord Krishna's service, and gradually one's character will become perfect. One who is a sincere devotee of Lord Krishna will develop all godly qualities by the mercy of the Lord, and one who was already serving the Lord with the above-mentioned qualities is to be understood as the greatest devotee. As indicated in verse 32, a pure devotee of the Lord is fully aware of the pious advantages of executing duties within the varnashram system, and he is similarly aware of the harmful mistake of neglecting such duties. Still, having full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a devotee gives up all ordinary social and religious activities and engages fully in devotional service. He knows that Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of everything, and that all perfection comes from Lord Krishna alone. Because of his extraordinary faith, the devotee is called Sattama, or the best among all living entities. As explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in Upadeshamrita, a devotee who has not yet developed the good qualities mentioned above, but is nevertheless sincerely endeavoring for Krishna consciousness, should receive the mercy of superior Vaishnavas. One should not necessarily accept intimate association with such an aspirant to pure devotional service, but one should be confident that by chanting the holy names of Krishna, such a person will eventually attain all perfection. One can imagine the beauty of a society filled with saintly persons, as described in these verses. The wonderful Krishna conscious qualities mentioned above are the basis of a peaceful and prosperous society, and if everyone takes to the loving service of Lord Krishna, then certainly the present atmosphere of fear, violence, lust, greed, and insanity can be replaced by a celestial situation in which the leaders and citizens will be happy. The essential points here are mat sharana. One should take full shelter of Lord Krishna, and mam bhajeta. One should worship the Lord through the authorized process. In this way, the entire world can become Sattama, or most perfect. So when Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy, it's a pretty deep thing. A lot of things happen along the way. Okay, I'll stop here. True. What a purport, huh? How many pages was that? We don't have any books, we just have devices. All right. We'll just have a short reflection period, because it's a little late, 7:23. I think I just blew out my voice, but let's see. Okay, Hare Krishna. Anyone out there in cyberspace? Anyone here in inner space? Okay. Our reliable Pranahari will start us going.
That in the list, Shanta was one of the qualities. And it explained the purport. A devotee is detached from such pointless activities and understands sense gratification to be diametrically opposed to his self-interest. Therefore, he's peaceful.
Yes.
So I just noted that because I thought it was an interesting point, how the peacefulness is due to understanding the diametric. I mean, there's that verse in the Gita, how I think you quoted a lot, how devotional service, one knows the purpose. Is it Tattvavit?
To Mahabaho.
Is it
Yeah, the
verse?
difference between devotional service and sense gratification.
Yeah. So I was.
One gets discrimination by Tattvavit.
Mhm.
Tattvavit tu Mahabaho, guna karma vibhagayo, guna guneshu vartanta, iti matvana sanjate.
Seems like that discrimination is necessary for the attainment of that peace.
Yeah, and the interesting point of that is that the conclusion was that if you just are performing devotional service, even if you're not perfect at it, without separate endeavor, you lose your taste. When we were traveling, whenever you're traveling, or when you go out in Sankirtan, you're going out a lot. I go once or twice a year. I go out and get my computer set up and all those things. And, you come off the plane and then you go through security, or you're going to the airport and going through security, and then the first thing you hit is a whole wall of, alcoholic beverages and pictures of women looking at you like seductively, and I mean it's just, and you walk through and you look and you just laugh. It's ludicrous, and all these people are trying to get a little bit more because they get no tax or something, duty free or whatever it is. That's what it means. Even when you're walking around, you can't not see or come in contact with those kinds of things. But if you're actually doing devotional service, or in the process of going to doing devotion, whatever it is, it's so protective that even it's there, it doesn't, it doesn't get through to make you agitated and think you want something like that, Powerful devotional service is very powerful, because especially now with all the, technological advancement and how they set up their pictures and with, huge, videos that can do all kinds of things and bewilder you. It's amazing. But the devotee is not agitated by it. The devotional service is so potent. If you just keep yourself engaged in devotional service, that's it. All those things will come. That's the message, isn't it? In this last section, where Krishna comes to the point of pure devotional service. Uddhava.
I mean, I was thinking it was interesting the difference between Gyan Mishra Bhakti and pure Bhakti.
Yeah.
It seemed like the Gyan Mishra Bhakti there was a heavy reliance on just kind of like using one's intelligence to discriminate between matter and spirit and like kind of force the meditation on
Trying
the
to
Lord.
avoid the fruits of mental
gratification.
Mental gratification, yeah. Trying to enjoy because when you do something like that, you get satisfaction up here that's, You know, I used to play jazz trumpet, and I would get a lot of that kind of intellectual pleasure from it. You know, playing the tunes that are in your mind and making them up and then playing them through an instrument to an audience. And everybody going, whoa, whoa, or whatever they were doing. But it couldn't hold a candle. I was able to give that up in one day. No, what's the word? No residue of attachment to it. Just like that one day. Kirtan. You led one kirtan, that was it. Finished.
So when we read the purport, when we read Prabhupada's books, sometimes it's very pleasing because the knowledge is so profound and it's so beautiful sometimes. And I mean, sometimes I feel that mental gratification, just how amazing Krishna is. And I mean, he says, like today's verse in the Bhagavatam class was talking about Krishna's mercy. It was in the personified, we were in the personified Vedas in the
second verse.
The second verse, yeah. And
I forgot. I was doing something. Oh no, I came back very late. So I missed your class. I was going to watch your class, but I missed it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just had a lot of fun with it. I felt the class came off good because I was having fun with the verse. I mean, it was just so awesome and juicy.
Yes.
But is that the same thing as like mental, like kind of like this Gyan Mishra Bhakti?
Can be. Generally not. If you're in the temple giving Bhagavatam class to the devotees and you're relishing, I think that's pretty safe. You're pretty safe from. But it's what's called a concomitant thing. It's a byproduct of doing that. That's the whole point that Krishna is making. If you try to glorify Krishna and his qualities and his opulences, automatically your intelligence becomes saturated with pleasure. And it actually goes beyond the mental plane. We have a spiritual body and a spiritual intelligence, spiritual senses, and they become satisfied in contact with Krishna. Therefore, we should always keep ourselves in contact with Krishna. And even if we can't, what was it? One of the purports said, and even if we can't, just continue to do the regular practices of devotional service, and gradually you will come to that platform. So it's not that if I'm enjoying on that subtle plane, that means I'm necessarily a jnana yoga, or a jnani. If you're trying to understand Krishna and applying it and glorifying his glories, there was that one section where it said, making dramatic performances and glorifying the glories of the Lord and explaining the glories of the Lord to make it more clear to other people. I mean, Krishna says right in the Gita that nothing pleases him more than that. So I guess you could say the difference is that if you're actually doing that to enjoy yourself, then it can be classified as mixed. That's the difference. You got something? I can see it. You're just